Thanks.
Waters World is on tonight.
We want Mexico to pay for the wall.
President Trump doubling down on his promise that Mexico will pay for the border wall. Tonight, in a Waters World exclusive, the chief of the U.S. Border Patrol sits down in her first on-camera interview to talk immigration, Mexico, and the wall. And
that is a dress that is designed to show off your girliness. Don't then tell us that you're crusading for an equal place for women at the table, because you're not.
the left going after Ivanka Trump for wearing a pink dress to the G20. Women all over America very angry about this. A feminist shootout tonight. Plus, President Trump over in France commemorating the 100-year anniversary of Americans in what war?
Cold War.
In true Waters World tradition, we hit the Jersey Shore looking for answers to our French-American history quiz. It all begins right now. Welcome to Waters World. I'm Jesse Waters. Politics and patriotism, that is the subject of tonight's Waters Words. Did Donald Trump Jr. give the left ammo by taking this meeting with the Russian lawyer? Yes. But has the left taken this ammo and shot themselves in the foot with it? Of course they have. Case in point.
We're now beyond obstruction of justice in terms of what's being investigated. This is moving into perjury, false statements, and even into potentially treason.
It's a White House in disarray. You have a kind of like a mafioso. The family's in charge only, and we keep it in our clan together.
This is so outrageous that it led to this on the 5. I'm very sick of the left calling the Trump family unpatriotic. They're now the McCarthyites. Let's remember what party defeated the Soviet Union while the Democratic Party was trying to appease and mimic communism.
Yes.
Democrats have been cozying up to dictators and our enemies for years, giving the Iranians billions of dollars, giving the North Koreans billions of dollars, shaking Hugo Chavez's hand, shaking Castro's hands. The Clintons were taking money from Chinese nationals in the 1996 re-election campaign and then selling satellite technology to the Chinese that enabled their missile program to blow up. The media colluded with the Democrats, letting Hillary cheat during the debates. President Obama palling around with domestic terrorists, sitting in the same church as an American-hating preacher. The Democrats undermining the military.
Let me just say this:
giving birth to ISIS, lying about a terrorist attack on the eve of the election. No, let me finish.
How much can we take?
Donald Trump's family has done more for this country than any Democrat elected official. He has provided more jobs in the real estate industry, in the fashion industry, in the hotel and casino industry. He's created more wealth for anybody in this entire country. So to smear them as mafia or unpatriotic is absolutely shameful. And I think everybody needs to wake up and realize this family is a patriotic family. And what's happening right now is a coup. Newt Gingrich put this whole so-called scandal into perspective and pointed out the blatant hypocrisy perfectly.
If after 9 months, all of these hearings, all of these investigations, the best we can come up with is a 20-minute meeting with a lawyer who had nothing to say, that there's zero relationship. By contrast, we do know that a Democratic National Committee person flew to Ukraine, worked with the Ukrainian government, sought to get information about Donald Trump, and by the way, or about Paul Manafort. And by the way, I don't see Mueller putting that on his list of investigations. I don't see that kind of collusion seeming to bother anybody. You want to talk emails? How about the 33,000 emails Hillary Clinton destroyed? Okay? Now, how come that's not a crime? How about the fact that Comey leaked documents that belong to the FBI in clear contravention of FBI rules? How come that's not a big problem? I mean, let's just go down the list. How come Bill Clinton's getting $500,000 from a Moscow bank? That's not a problem. How about the fact that the chairman of the campaign's brother was a registered agent of the Clinton campaign, registered agent of a Russian bank? Oh, that's not a problem. How about millions of dollars going to the Clinton Foundation while the Secretary of State approves uranium being given to the Russians, being sold to the Russians? That's not a problem. This city right now, the news media in this country, is in a frenzy that is leading it to desperately seek something.
This week, I have no more words. During the campaign, President Trump promised to build a border wall, a promise he's sticking to.
We will build the wall. We've already started planning. It will be built. I'm a builder. That's what I love to do. That's probably what I do best. I'm a builder.
President Trump also said Mexico would pay for the wall. He's making good on that as well.
You want Mexico to pay for the wall?
President Trump said that to the Mexican president's face. And he's coming up with new ideas to maximize safety. Just this week, he suggested that the wall be see-through to give border guards greater visibility. And it's not just talk. The Department of Homeland Security is getting to work and expecting to construct 4 to 8 prototypes by the end of the summer. Joining me now for her very first on-camera interview is Acting Chief of the United States Border Patrol, Carla Provost. So, Chief, many Americans do not live close to the border, so they don't understand the danger involved in the environment down there. Please describe to them the cartel activity, the drug smuggling, and the dangerous environment that poses such a threat and why it's so important to neutralize it.
Certainly, Jesse. You know, our men and women on the front line put themselves at risk every day as they're trying to protect this great nation. As you said, the cartels, the transnational criminal organizations, they're worried about getting their product across the borders, whether that be people, whether it be narcotics or other things that could do us harm. And it really is an environment that our frontline employees are at risk. They do a great job of protecting this nation and really putting their lives on the line day in and day out.
And which cartel is operating primarily down on the border region?
We have numerous cartels that work in the area, so spread out across the entire southwest border, but that is something that we work very closely with our partners in the intelligence community as we work to try to impact those cartels.
And the drugs that are being smuggled across, what are the top 3 drugs that are coming across?
Well, for the Border Patrol, we still see the largest numbers of marijuana, though that has been dropping. Methamphetamine, cocaine, heroin, as well as fentanyl are coming across the border.
Okay. So now the border wall is going to go up pretty soon, we believe. And now it could be see-through to give the people on the border some transparency so they could see all these things flying across and they're not surprised by anything. We actually have a picture of an incident, I believe it was in Nogales, that border town. So this woman was being, I think, dangled by smugglers over the top of the border wall. And then when the Border Patrol showed up, the smugglers just dropped her and left her there hanging. So the wall that's being built, I believe, is going to be much taller, and it's going to prohibit the digging underground at least 6 feet deep. Are you hearing that as well?
So certainly that has been something that we've used in the past to prevent digging underneath. I am not certain yet what the height will be of the wall. I look forward to seeing what industry brings to the table to expand our tools in our toolkit when it comes to border security possibilities.
And we do know President Trump wants to make the side of the wall aesthetically pleasing that faces the United States. What is the main issue right now for people that are, not very familiar with the border that you would like to share with them?
I think just the great work that our men and women do day in and day out to protect this country. They have a really tough job to do, and they do it to the best of their ability with limited resources.
Now, we're hearing that the funding for the border wall may be held up by Democrats in Congress who don't want to fund it, and they may even shut the government down to stop funding the border wall. What would you say to them?
I don't really get involved in the funding portion of it. As the acting chief of the Border Patrol, my job is to set the requirement of what we need, and that's really our role as we go forward.
But if you don't get the money, you're not going to have what you need, correct?
Certainly.
Okay. Well, I hope they get that message. I want to play a quick soundbite from Acting ICE Director Thomas Hamman, who said this about President Trump. Roll it.
I made it clear, when you enter this country illegally, you have committed a crime. And you can't want to be a part of this country and not respect its laws. So those who enter the country illegally, you may get past the Border Patrol, and in the past you had this feeling that, okay, I'm home free, I got by the Border Patrol and no one's looking for me. Well, those days are over. We're looking for you. We're going to prioritize what we do, but we're going to enforce the law without apology.
Okay, so that is the message now, enforcing the law. Is that something you're hearing as well?
Certainly. That is something that we work closely with ICE and Director Homan, and that's the key really to the success. We see that enforcement works, it has certainly had an impact.
All right. Well, Chief, I wish you and your colleagues safety down there. I know how dangerous it can be, and you have the support of Water's World. When the wall is underway, I may go down there with a shovel and break ground. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Jesse.
One of the leaders of the anti-Trump movement is calling on Americans to get violent and fight the right. He's going to be here next. And the president kicked off France's Bastille Day parade. But how much do Americans know about it? What is your favorite French food?
French fries, of course. So DJ, bring them back.
Angry anti-Trump protesters demanding, quote, the Trump-Pence regime must go across the country this weekend. Here in New York, the group started at Trump Tower, although the president isn't even there. The protesters are part of a group called Antifa, short for anti-fascism. Recently, in an open letter published on the anarchist website called It's Going Down, an Antifa member calls for Americans to get violent in order to oust President Trump. The author writes, it is time for liberals and progressives to lose their illusions about the anarchist movement and our tactics because, quite frankly, you have no one else willing to fight for you. Kevin, who doesn't want to give his last name, represents the Antifa branch of Boston, claims he wrote that letter. He joins me now via Skype. So, Kevin, why don't you want us to use your last name? What are you afraid of?
You see what happened with CNN? They basically doxed that guy that made that GIF.
So you're afraid if your name is out there, people are going to come to your house?
Of course.
Okay.
Just
let me ask you something quickly, because you told this to our producer. You said, if violence is what it takes to bring about our goals, so be it. What do you mean by that?
Okay, you're kind of taking my words out of context there.
Well, what did you say?
Just a second now, you claimed that I'm promoting violence. We only want violence and self-defense from aggression by these racists and xenophobes that come and attack us at our peaceful protests.
Who's been attacking you guys?
Racists, mostly. They're racist.
Klan members have been attacking you guys?
Right-wing Trump supporters. Klan members fall under that category.
Okay, so how do you know they're racist if they're Trump supporters?
Because Trump himself is racist. He started his campaign on racism.
Yeah, because we're looking at some video right now. I don't know if you can see it, but we don't see a lot of hand-to-hand comment. We just see a lot of your crew smashing windows and lighting things on fire. How is that self-defense?
No, I can't see any video. I just got a blank screen here.
Okay, well, you got to take my word for it. Are you familiar with the violent actions that your group has perpetrated?
You got to take my word for it. It is in self-defense. Against right-wing aggression.
Was it in self-defense when you firebombed a limousine during the inauguration?
Yes.
Okay, because the owner of the limousine is a Muslim immigrant. Were you aware of that?
Well, you know, a lot of violence committed by so-called Antifa members is actually committed by these right-wingers who basically seek to make us look bad.
Okay, so the Muslim immigrant who owned the limo that was firebombed was trying to make you look bad how?
I don't think he's the one that firebombed it. It's these right-wing infiltrators. You see it all the time, all over the internet.
So
There's these so-called Antifa groups that have been
What about when an Antifa member stabbed a police horse in the neck with a knife? Was the horse a racist Trump supporter?
Yes. So the horse...
I didn't know horses could vote.
You see, the horse is a tool of the police, and the police under the Trump administration have been increasingly intolerant, militarized, racist, and xenophobic. You see it all the time. There have been so many cases of unarmed black men and women, our fellow POCs, that have been attacked, shot, and killed by these racist policemen and policewomen under the Trump administration. They kill.
I think the police are
black
actually trying to protect the safety of the citizens that you guys are causing mayhem in front of, but that's besides the point. Why can't you guys peacefully protest like Gandhi or Martin Luther King?
You see, we do peacefully protest. In the case of Martin Luther King,
not from what I see on the video, but go ahead.
When they were attacked, they certainly defended themselves. When Martin Luther King was shot and assassinated, he
well, I'm not comparing you to Martin Luther King. I was just saying maybe you should try to adopt some of their tactics. What is your goal, your bottom line goal?
Our goal, I like to keep it plain and simple. I like to say we want to smash the fash. And
so violence is your goal.
I mean all types of fascism, racism.
Okay, who's the fascist?
Mainly these right-wingers who attack us. They are all over the internet these days, and they've been emboldened by this administration to show their faces in real life and come attack us.
So you guys are like a self-defense group. Is that what you're saying? Okay, got it.
We are a self-defense group.
Who did you vote for in the election?
I voted for Hillary Clinton.
Okay. I'm sure she's proud to have you as a supporter. Well, I don't know if the Secret Service is watching. Maybe they should take a closer look at you. Kevin, I appreciate you coming in to Water's World.
I wanted to vote for Bernie Sanders, but the nomination was stolen from him. But I just could not let Trump take the presidency, you understand?
Okay, well, you know what? That's maybe the one thing you and I agree with. I think the primary was rigged against our friend Bernie. Thank you, Kevin. I appreciate it. Bernie Sanders' Senate seat may not be safe. The man challenging him is here and says the socialist is a big phony. But would he be any better? I find out when he joins me later. And speaking of Sanders, millennials flocked to his socialist platform during the election. But do they even know what socialism is?
Economically, what is socialism?
Economically, So, I'm going to think about that for a second.
Last year, millennials across the country were feeling the burn in hopes of free everything under socialism. But do America's young people even know what socialism is? Our friends at Campus Reform went to the front lines to find out.
How would you define socialism?
I mean, honestly, that definition gets thrown around a lot.
How would you view what socialism is, though? Economically, what is socialism?
Economically, So, I'm going to think about that for a second.
I guess just specifically just, getting rid of that wealth gap in the United States.
How would I describe it as little words possible?
How would you define socialism?
I mean, it's definitely more of an open form of government, and it feels like a lot more accessible to a lot more people, and that's kind of how I see it, like being more accessible and more kind of like equal ground.
What does that mean necessarily, though?
To be quite honest, I don't know.
Is socialism a good thing or a bad thing?
I mean, I think people kind of throw that word around to try to scare you.
It could really benefit our country in the future.
I think it's a good idea.
Trying to spread the wealth is definitely a good thing in America, and it's definitely a thing that's needed.
Joining me now, the man with the microphone, Campus Reform's media director, Cabot Phillips. Okay, Cabot, so they don't know what socialism is, but they love it.
They do. This is concerning, and it's funny, but it's scary. Millennials are now the largest voting bloc in America. And
they are.
They're going to the polls.
We're doomed. That's it.
They're going
doomed.
to the polls with a completely warped view of what socialism is. And I think it's two main reasons that we're seeing this kind of thing where they love socialism without knowing. It's President Obama, who for 8 years made mainstream this concept of spreading the wealth, and he brought class warfare back.
Yes, he did.
And also, we've got liberal professors that are teaching a revisionist form of history, leaving out what socialism has actually
totally
done.
Indoctrinated. You know, when I go out, sometimes I'll say, where has socialism worked? And it really hasn't, because if you look at Venezuela, toilet paper is a luxury item, and for a while they had to go to a 2-day work week because they wanted to save electricity. It's not going that well whenever it's enacted.
And the average Venezuelan has lost 36 pounds in the past year. And I think next year for spring break...
Maybe that's a good thing. Maybe they were obese. Or no, you're saying they're starving.
They're starving.
Okay,
That's what it
so
is.
maybe that's not a good
diet.
thing.
And next year for spring break, I think these students should go a little further south than Cancun or Panama City, go to Venezuela, stop at Cuba on the way back, actually see what it looks like in real life. And sadly, they would learn more from a trip to Venezuela than they would in a classroom, because professors are not teaching what it actually is. They're teaching that socialism is social equality and fairness for all.
I will not be sending my children to Venezuela on spring break, but you know, anybody else that wants to have that enlightening experience, I say go for it. Cabot, thank you very much. MSNBC trashing Ivanka Trump for wearing a pink dress at the G20. Would they have preferred a pantsuit? A feminist debate up next. Also, Kid Rock, Jesus, and fake news when we come right back.
Live from America's News headquarters, I'm Rob Schmidt. Investigators are continuing to look for a motive in the killings of 4 young men in suburban Philadelphia, but a prosecutor fears they may never find an answer. Cosmo DiNardo and Sean Kratz, both charged in connection with the murders. Their prior criminal records involve minor burglaries and traffic violations. DiNardo's attorney says he'll plead guilty after confessing. Both he and Kratz are being held without bail. New information tonight about a high-rise apartment fire in Honolulu. Police say a Hawaiian Airlines in-flight manager and his mother were among the 3 victims killed in that blaze. Firefighters also went door-to-door Saturday in search of additional victims. So far, no one else has been found. The mayor of Honolulu said that building was built in 1971 and was not required to have a sprinkler system, so it did not. I'm Rob Schmidt. Now back to Watters World.
Time now for some real news you probably didn't hear this week. We begin with good news for House Majority Whip Steve Scalise, who was shot by a deranged Democrat. He was released from the ICU, but remains in fair condition after another surgery. We wish Steve Scalise and his family a speedy recovery. If you haven't checked your 401k lately, give it a glance, because chances are it's up. In fact, since Election Day, the stock market is up 17%. But of course, the Trump boom is not covered by the mainstream media. Speaking of Maine, a Maine state representative, a Democrat, threatening President Trump on Facebook. Scott Ham posting, "I just can't deal with you ignorant people anymore." 100% of intelligent Americans agree that Trump is a complete loser. But go back to clinging to your guns because you are afraid. Bleep, bleep, bleep. Trump is a half-term president at most, especially if I ever get within 10 feet of that blank. He later apologized for making the, quote, aggressively sarcastic and inappropriate comments. The Secret Service is aware of the posting, though, and has launched an investigation. Shia LaBeouf in hot water again, this time going on a racist rant against the African-American cop who arrested him for public drunkenness, obstruction, and disorderly conduct. Listen.
Because he's a black man. That don't mean he's going to hell. It means a whole lot, bro. You dumbass.
Wow. Shia apologized, saying he's been struggling with addiction for a long time. Good luck. A painting of Jesus was left hanging in front of a mosque in New York, but get this, police are investigating it as a hate crime. Yes, a picture of Jesus is a hate crime. Even the mosque leaders are not offended by the imagery of Jesus Christ and have said this is a teaching moment between Muslims and Christians. Only in New York. And a startup company in China which allows people to pay a deposit and rent an umbrella, just announced that they have lost nearly all of their 300,000 umbrellas in just the first few weeks of operation. They're planning to put GPS trackers on the next batch of umbrellas to keep a better eye on them. Aren't the GPS trackers worth more than the umbrellas themselves? Communism, ladies and gentlemen. And now, some fake news. A photograph of President Trump listening to President Putin has gone viral. The problem is the photo's fake. Putin wasn't even present and was photoshopped into the photo. Here is the real photo from the Associated Press. As you can see, President Putin was nowhere in sight. Still, the fake photo was viewed by hundreds of thousands of people. And Kid Rock has announced he is going to run for Senate in Michigan. Rock created a website and made his announcement, but critics claimed he was just promoting his album because he still hasn't filed his federal election paperwork. Kid said the following on his website. Once again, the press is wrong. First of all, I've got 15 days from my announcement to file paperwork with the FEC. Second, I'm not signed to Warner Brothers, which, simple fact, checking would have revealed. Like politicians write books during their campaigns, I'm planning on putting out music during mine. It's not a hoax. It's a strategy and marketing 101. If Trump can be president, surely Kid Rock can be senator. And last week, Ivanka Trump sat in briefly for president and held his seat at one of the G20 meetings. Well, not only did people get mad at Ivanka holding the president's seat, but some claimed her dress was too girly. Take a look at what so-called feminists said about Ivanka.
I don't mean to sound sexist. It can be dangerous to comment on what women wear. But the fact that she sat in for her father in a dress that was so incredibly ornamental was such a contradiction in terms. That's not a dress that's made for work. That's not a dress that's made to go out in the world and make a difference. That is a dress that is designed to show off your girliness. And, you know, God bless her, show it off. But don't then tell us that you're crusading for an equal place for women at the table, because you're not.
So are you only allowed to be a feminist if you are a liberal? And can feminists even wear pink? Joining me now to discuss is Katie Pavlich, editor of townhall.com and author of Assault and Flattery, and Jeannie Zaino, political science professor at Iona College. So Katie, when you start a sentence with, I don't mean to sound sexist, usually what follows that is not so good.
I mean, the Joan Walsh interview, there was so much to unpack there in terms of her, Joan Walsh, contradicting herself on what she thought Ivanka Trump should do. Not only was her saying and making comments about how girly Ivanka's dress was inappropriate and sexist according to feminist terms, but one thing that hasn't been picked up is that Joan Walsh called for Rex Tillerson and H.R. McMaster to resign, to quit their positions because they, as men, didn't sit in for Ivanka, a woman, instead.
Well, I'll be waiting for those resignation letters any day now. Jeannie, what's wrong with wearing pink if you're a feminist? Is that not cool?
I don't think there's personally anything wrong with wearing pink, and I don't support what Joan Walsh said. But if you do talk to liberals and Democrats and people who are self-defined feminists, which Ivanka Trump has not defined herself as, they talk about the policy issues, and the policy issues are clear. She has made some inroads on the issues like paid maternity leave. Yeah. But when it comes to many other issues, this is an administration that is anti-feminist. And of course, let me just say, you define feminism differently if you're Republican versus Democrat. Who in their right mind that's a Democrat is going to expect to support Ivanka Trump? She is part of the administration that is anti-Democrat. So
I don't know. I think Ivanka is considered more of a moderating influence on her father and has been pretty successful on women's issues when it comes to entrepreneurship and human trafficking. Wouldn't you agree, Katie?
Well, look, so-called feminists want to define feminism in the way that they see fit while claiming to represent all women. Really, feminism in the modern day sense, going back to the 60s, when I say modern day, is all about anti-capitalism, big government, socialist policies. And the number one issue that feminists care about, they don't actually care about the economy, they don't care about jobs for women, they care about abortion.
Yeah, that's what it's all about.
And it's because Ivanka Trump hasn't come up as a staunch supporter of abortion. Therefore, they can't support her other feminist policies in terms of family leave and female entrepreneurship, which gives women a hand up instead of a handout and gives them a place in the economy where they can be on their own, be individuals, and be empowered, which feminists at the beginning of the movement claimed was the goal.
That's right. Well, I'll give you a quick last word. Go ahead.
This is a president who came into office and issued an executive order revoking the Fair Pay Act. So if you want to talk about equal pay and fair pay, there's a lot of it. Well, it's absolutely true. He revoked the Fair Pay and Equal Work Act. You can look it up. Yes, he did. And so you can talk about what you want about defining feminism, but you can't say the Trump administration has a feminist agenda. They themselves.
Well, all I know is that I'm wearing pink, and I consider myself somewhat of a feminist. Katie, Jeannie, thank you very much. Still ahead, this Bastille Day, we hit the Jersey Shore for a classic Waters World quiz on all things French. And the Democrat challenging Bernie Sanders for his Senate seat says he's tired of the socialists' Robin Hood shtick. He joins me next. Bernie Sanders made big waves in the 2016 election, leading his campaign with promises like this.
Not a fan of the banks. They trample on the middle class. They control Washington. And why do they chain all their pens to the desks? Who's trying to steal a pen from a bank?
It was my bad. The way that wasn't the right video. That was actually Larry David on Saturday Night Live. Let's try that again.
And that idea is to make public colleges and universities tuition-free for every person in New York State, in Vermont, and in America. I am fighting to break up the large banks on Wall Street. As soon as we defeat this disastrous bill, I will be introducing a Medicare for all single-payer program.
But Jan Svidovsky says those promises are fake, and all Bernie did was steal votes away from Hillary. So he's challenging Sanders for his Senate seat and joins me now. Okay, Jan, I just want to lead with the news here. Bernie's wife under FBI investigation. If found guilty, do you think she deserves to go to jail, or do you think they're getting special treatment?
Oh, no, I don't think they're getting special treatment. The FBI is investigating, and whether or not she goes to jail, it's not something that I could say or would have the right opinion. I think it depends upon the degree of guilt and what was done, and if in fact it is true that she defrauded, the banks were defrauded, or she made promises which or statements which weren't true. But that's something that that prosecutors would have to decide, and I trust that they're doing their job.
Okay, maybe that's why Bernie said he didn't care about Hillary's emails, because he knew he was on shaky legal ground himself. But that's just speculation. I just want to move on. You're running against Bernie Sanders because you say he's a phony. Why is Bernie a phony?
Well, I'm not sure that's the central word I'd use, although something perhaps close to it. I was listening to the clip that you said, and when he said he was fighting for to break up the banks, and yet when I read the Daily News interview and they asked him about that and how he was going to do that, and he said I really don't know. I haven't looked at that. And when he talks about single payer, it's a great idea. I'd like to promise free health care, free prescriptions, free tuition, and maybe free cars. But if I don't have a plan, if I'm not really working to enact those things, then what good are they? It's just rhetoric. And
you know what I don't understand, because I've been to Vermont many times, and it's such a beautiful state, and the people are normal and they're fantastic, and then they elect some socialist like Bernie who's got these crazy ideas. What's going on in Vermont?
Well, Vermont's a wonderful state, and the people are wonderful and intelligent. And I think what it is I think Bernie represents an ideal, and it's an ideal. The rhetoric is wonderful.
An expensive ideal.
Yeah, but it's an ideal. I don't think people really support Bernie Sanders. Most people who know Bernie or have tried to work with him have been put off by his arrogance and his superiority and his unwillingness to work with other people.
Why do you think Bernie is so arrogant?
Well, first I want to say, I think what he represents to people is someone who's willing to stand up and speak the truth to power, and someone who cares about the little man. That's what he represents, and that's what I think is not true at all.
You're saying Bernie doesn't really represent the little man?
No, I don't believe he does. He has wonderful rhetoric that would help the little man, perhaps, but he's not doing anything. He hasn't enacted any of these plans. Right. He hasn't given plans and how he's going to do it and really help you. When I talked about caring for the homeless, it's not just, hey, the homeless ought to be cared for. I've started 5 homeless shelters, and it's what you do that matters so much more than what you say.
Well, it looks like you may be coming up in the polls. Bernie might be feeling the burn. And good luck up there in Vermont. Thank you very much, Jan.
Jesse, thank you.
All right, we asked Bernie Sanders to join us on Water's World, but we never heard back. President Trump back in France this week celebrating Bastille Day in Paris. So Water's World hits the beach to see what Americans know about our French history. Who did America fight in World War I?
The French.
They were on our side. President Trump in France this week to celebrate Bastille Day in the City of Lights with French President Emmanuel Macron. Bastille Day commemorates the start of the French Revolution. As one of America's closest allies, we have a long history with the French. But how much do Americans know about it? I head to the Jersey Shore to find out. Happy Bastille Day.
Thank you very much. Don't know what you mean by that, but Bastille Day. What's that?
It's like the French July 4th.
Okay, that sounds cool.
President Trump over in France commemorating the 100-year anniversary of Americans in what war?
Cold War.
The Cold War ended about 20 years ago.
All right. Maybe the Revolutionary War?
Why would Trump go to France to commemorate the Revolutionary War?
I embarrassed myself enough already. What was going on around this time? Just the gold rush? Or something
World War II. One.
Yes.
World War I.
Very good.
1 century ago, the United States entered World War I. That's a big, important date, 100 years.
Who did America fight in World War I?
The French.
They were on our side.
France is America's first and oldest ally. A lot of people don't know that.
Everyone? I don't know. World War.
Japan.
That was World War II.
Germany.
Yes, excellent. Tell me about Napoleon.
Napoleon Dynamite?
What the heck are you guys doing? Trying to ruin my life and make me look like a friggin' idiot?
The little guy. He
was taller than you.
Zinger. Kind of thought he was better than everyone else because I know there's a syndrome that people name that after.
Complex.
Napoleon complex, yes. My boss is actually kind of short. I shouldn't say that.
Yeah, you know, you're on television right now.
Yeah, that's not a good idea.
Okay. Do you speak any French?
Oui, oui.
Honey, speak the language. They're going to be very nice. Just try.
What do you do really well that's French?
Oh, French kiss.
Pump the brakes. What is your favorite French food?
French fries, of course.
All I need are some tasty waves, cool buzz, and I'm fine.
Your fries are really good. I appreciate you bringing them down here to America, and I wish all the French the best.
I don't think the French fries are actually French.
Okay.
Do you know who I am?
No, I don't.
I'm Waters, and this is my world.
Really?
Really.
All right, well, nice to meet you, Waters.
I don't know if you guys noticed anything, but the collar wasn't up. I'm thinking about retiring the pop collar. It had a nice run. However, I've already gotten a lot of pushback. So I wanted to leave it up to you. Weigh in on the debate on Twitter at Waters World, picking either hashtag bring it back or hashtag RIP pop collar. We'll bring you the results next week. Can't wait. Up next, the biggest scandal of the week. And it has to do with me and this guy, Ron Burgundy.
I'm kind of a big deal.